Hello everybody and welcome back to the Eternal Sonata playthrough. It is time to begin our trek through the two Coda ruins in order to try and find Crescendo and Serenade before they do something incredibly stupid. Now, I have to say the two Coda ruins are quite fascinating because ultimately the way this works is that there's lots of teleporters and you're going to be teleporting from island to island. There is actually a whole bit of extra story that you can see here that you may not actually realise is there. If you examine a number of pillars before each teleporter to a new island that tell the story of some ancient kings, which effectively tell you the story of these kings, and that's quite cool. I'm not going to show them off here because I didn't actually realise they were there, but I will talk you through that story in sequence. So, the first king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Betrayal." The second king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "False pride." The third king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Conceit."
Don't be such a crybaby.
The fourth king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Resentment." The fifth king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Jealousy." The sixth king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Suspicion." The seventh king asked, "Can you read what is in my heart?" The bronze bird replied, "Distress." The sixth king asked again, "Can you read what is in my heart?" As before, the bronze bird replied, "Suspicion." The eighth king mourned, "My heart will be hard to save." The golden bird cried loudly, "Sincerity." So obviously there's a whole allegory there, but it's effectively going along the whole idea of all the previous kings were just like, "Tell me something, I need to know what's in my heart." And so the birds replied with what was in their heart, and that was a whole host of negative emotions. But the final king obviously didn't care what was in his heart. He was repentant, and so that's why the golden bird replies with sincerity. That whole thing. It's that whole, do you take the golden cup or do you take the wooden cup type dealio. I mean, there's also...
Let's go! Show me what you've got!
I believe it's the Merchant of Venice,
Are you catching on yet?
where there's a princess or daughter of a duke or whatever her name is. That's really bad, I only read it the other week. Already forgotten her name. I think it's Portia? Something like that. And in her father's will, he says that anybody who wants to have her hand in marriage will have to successfully complete his test. And so there are 3 chests, all of which have different sentiments to do with them, and these guys are tested by going pick the right chest, and if you fail then you must marry no woman, and ultimately the right, so I think it's a golden chest, a silver chest and an iron chest or something along those lines, and obviously the right answer is the iron one because you don't need a dowry when you've got an intelligent, beautiful woman who loves you and you love her. That's worth its weight in gold, really. And so that's generally always the answer. Makes sense. Now, before I go into my nice long stretch about... it's not going to be a long stretch, but a little stretch about the etymology behind Coda, I do just want to mention that in the PS3 version of the game, Allegretto's new costume because obviously in the PS3 version you can get alternate costumes for the characters. And yeah, he only has the one. It's quite cool because it's a bit more heroic, so to speak. Like, it's a darker colour, and it's more of a tunic-y type dealio. Looks quite good, actually, to be fair. But that can be found in the Coda ruins. Basically, you take a walk from Jealousy Island back to Resentment Island, and that's how you figure it out.
Are you catching on yet?
Now, also before I go into my etymological stretch, enemies in this particular area, you've got Dark Antiques, which are the floating metal thingies. You've got the Ancient Fish and the Strong Glory that change depending on whether they're in the light or the dark. And then you have the ooh parts or oh parts or something of the like. Which is like one of the strangest names I have ever seen. Apparently, it's an acronym for Out of Place Artifacts, which was a term coined by cryptozoologist Ivan T. Sanderson, and it refers to artifacts whose allegedly anomalous existence supposedly proves that science is willfully or ignorantly overlooking certain areas of knowledge. Certainly quite fitting for the enemies here, because obviously they are of a technological level that is greater than you may perhaps have thought. Obviously, considering this is a medieval culture and yet you have these mechanical beasts. Something quite fascinating. But now that that is all out of the way, it's time to go on to that whole thing about Coda. So, ultimately, as everything in this game is a musical reference, this is another one. So a coda, which is Italian for tale, is a passage that brings a piece or a movement, so a song, to an end. Technically it's an expanded cadence, but it's much more specific. Well, it's not more specific, but it refers to the specific thing. It can be as simple as just a few measures, or it could be as complex as an entire section which brings the piece of music to an end. I believe the kind of official definition for a coda is tale of a note, the bars occasionally added to a contrapuntal movement after the close or finish of the canto fermo, the few chords or bars attached to an infinite canon in order to render it finite, or a few chords not in a canon added to a finite canon for the sake of obtaining a more harmonious conclusion, and that closing adjunct of any movement or piece specially intended to enforce a feeling of completeness and finality. So effectively, a good example of a coda would be the ending piece of music that was added to the Unstoppable Wonderful 100 in the Wonderful 101. Because in the game, that theme song just plays on a loop, so it never has an end. But obviously when they made the soundtrack, it's... You don't listen to a soundtrack for a song not necessarily to have an end. So they needed to come, particularly a theme song, so they needed to come up with a way of finishing off the song, and so they added a few extra notes to just round it off and give it a finite stopping point. And so that would be an example of coda. So, the instruction to coda indicates that upon reaching that point during the final repetition, the performer is meant to jump immediately to the separate section headed with the coda symbol, which indicates the end of the song. So it can be used to provide a special ending for the final verse of the song. And so that makes a lot of sense for this particular dungeon, because it is indicating that we're heading towards the final act of the game. And while we're not necessarily quite there yet, it is effectively what we are heading towards. And that's great. What happened here is that I had a bit of a recording glitch as I picked up the matchlock axe or whatever it was, and yeah, I wasn't re-recording. I was a bit lazy, but it's just because it happened quite a lot during this particular dungeon.
Come on, let's go.
And I just wasn't having any of it. So I just thought, you know what, I'll run back to where I was, go through the teleporter again. I can cut during the teleporter, just show that picking that up, and go back, and it'll be fine. As long as I show you what was in that chest, you don't need to see me opening the damn thing.
Did I make your eyes thin?
But yes. Something else that you have probably noticed is that I'm really not cutting all that many battles out right now, and as I said, that is ultimately because we are leveling up pretty much every battle, for better or worse. It was at this point where I was just like, oh, I think my my battle tactics are gonna have to change ever so slightly. Because, well, not my battle tactics, my editing tactics. We're gonna have to change slightly because, yeah, we're pretty much leveling up every single battle, and that just means that these latter dungeons, which are quite long, are just going to take longer and longer and longer and longer to get through. And I don't want to be sat here for all that length of time, and I don't think you do either. Because we've all got better things to do with our time. I mean, to be fair, you're doing the slightly crazy thing of sitting here watching me play a game and talk over it. But then I'm also doing the crazy thing of talking over video game footage that I recorded a while ago. So, we're all equally on the crazy train right now. And that's just the way it goes. But I've completely forgotten what my point was gonna be there. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh yeah, I was just going on about why I didn't want to sit through all of that footage again. So, I believe it's not going to be this dungeon, and it might not even be the next dungeon. But when we reach the final area, just because we're going to be in there for quite a while, I'm pretty sure that my editing techniques, whether it's that dungeon or the optional dungeon, it's definitely the optional dungeon, I can tell you that now. But I can't remember quite where it is that I begin it, but we're going to skip from showing every battle in which there's a level up to just showing every level up, unless there's a new enemy or there was a particularly interesting thing occur in it, like pull off a pretty damn cool harmony chain, or use a new move, that sort of stuff, because otherwise we will be here for a very long time. And as much as I love Eternal Sonata, I don't think that mentally I have enough commentary within me to talk over that much stuff, because I would I'd probably lose my marbles by the end of it, because something that I have cropped down into maybe 4 parts would have taken us about 8 at least, had I not cut it down.
Bullseye.
And so, yeah, it would have gotten particularly boring for both you and I had that occurred. So, yeah, just thought, just get in there, crunk it down. Probably not a correct word. Probably not even a word I want to be using. But there we go. Just crop it down a little bit, make it a bit more palatable, and then we're good. Now, since we've still got like another 15 minutes or so, I feel that I love the Tristesse track, it's beautiful. But it's actually not the first time that I've come across the term Tristesse. That would actually be Kingdom Hearts 358 over 2 days, because Shion's theme is called Musique pour la Tristesse de Shion, which effectively translates to Music for the Sadness of Shion. It's a beautiful, beautiful track. But yeah, that's the first time that I ever saw that word, because obviously, while I am sort of cultured, I'm not very good when it comes to other languages. Like, I try my best, I try to do my research, especially when it comes to names and meanings and all that jazz, but I'm not very on it with a lot of terms, simply because I only study French at GCSE, and that's about the extent of my languages studies. But ever since I knew of Musique pour la Tristesse de Shion, it's always stayed in my head. I think just because I really, really liked that song. It was a particularly beautiful song. I mean, I also love its boss fight variation, which is Vector to the Heavens. That's brilliant. But yeah, that's just stuck with me. But it might also be worth just going a bit more into some of the more complex elements of the song. Chopin's Tristesse, obviously, because it's I think it is very different to a lot of his other etudes. So there's an element of significance with it, obviously, because it differs from most of Chopin's etudes in its tempo, its poetic character, and the lingering yet powerful recitation of its cantabile melody. So it marks a significant departure from the technical virtuosity required in the standard etudes before Chopin's time, So you had slow etudes for polyphonic playing, especially slower introductions to etudes, as well as etudes with alternating slower and faster sections, which are easily found in the third volume of Clementi's Gradus ad Parnassum from 1856. According to German scholar and Chopin biographer Friedrich Niecks, Chopin said to his German pupil and copyist, Adolf Gutmann, that he had never in his life written another such beautiful melody, and on one occasion when Gutmann was studying it, the master lifted his arms with his hands clasped and exclaimed, "Oh my fatherland!" Niecks writes that this study may be reckoned among Chopin's loveliest compositions, as it combines classical chasteness of contour with the fragrance of romanticism. American music critic James Huneker believed it to be simpler, less morbid, sultry and languorous, therefore saner than the much bepraised study in C-sharp minor. Chopin originally gave his OP10 No. 3 etude the tempo vivace, later adding ma non troppo. It's also relevant that to observe this etude is in 2/4 time, not 4/4 time, although it's generally performed as a very slow 4/8 piece. And the visual impact of the score alone strongly suggests that a languid tempo is incorrect. And there's also no doppio movimento following the opening section, which results in an erroneous, drastic slowing down for the re-entry of the opening section. Those are unwritten by Chopin, according to his autograph manuscript and other original source materials, so obviously it should generally be played at a bit of a faster pace. And there's also some nice structural and stylistic traits that it has. So, like most of his other etudes, it works in a ternary form, i.e. ABA, and the A section is of a remarkable melodic construction. Musologist Hugo Leichtentritt believes its asymmetric structure, 5+3 and 5+7 bars, to be highly relevant to the impact of the melody. The first 5 bars can be seen as a contraction of 4+4 bars, with the final clause of the prototypal 8-bar period replaced by bar 5. I think I'm getting a bit lost as well.
Are you catching on yet?
But yeah, I think because it alternates a bit, it's a little bit asymmetrical, I suppose, in its phrase. And it has a distinct crescendo and diminuendo signs allocated polyphonically, and sometimes even differing in the two voices that are played by the right hand, so there's different voices played by each hand, which is quite fascinating. And also, I think it's quite a hard song to play, because the right hand contains a melody, which is to be played by three weak fingers, then the accompaniment figure played by the first 2 fingers on the hand. So I think that would be the thumb and the first finger, and then your other 3. So, yeah, you've got to do quite a lot of work to pull it off effectively. So yeah, you can really tell that Chopin was damn good at playing the piano. And yeah, he's particularly amazing. And I mean, it has been used in many places, not necessarily many that a lot of people would particularly remember. I mean, you can hear it in the Futurama series finale, Meanwhile, and various other films. And in terms of music, the melody of Tristesse is featured in Survival by Muse, which was the theme, or the official theme for the 2012 Summer Olympics in London, which is quite nice. And Dans la Nuit by Sarah Brightman is derived from the melody of Tristesse. There's probably the most of it you might recognise. Yeah, it's lovely. I just love listening to all of the Chopin pieces in this game. They do just really give you an appreciation for how damn good he was and how beautiful his compositions are. I have to say, I'm not really sure what I would say is my favourite of the batch, because I really do just love pretty much all of them. There's just a rather magical quality about them. And I think because you get to listen to them while seeing about the life that he led, it's just something that's just quite beautiful, and gives you that kind of cultural importance related with the piece. And obviously context can be everything. And so that's just what makes it all so magical to me, anyway. And Oh, that's a battle, isn't it? Didn't stand much of a chance there.
Are you catching on yet? Take that!
But yes, we are slowly but surely coming up to the halfway point of this dungeon. Yes, halfway point. We're going to be here for a little bit longer. It's not as long as this part. And certainly not as long as we're going to be facing in the final dungeons of the game. But, yeah, we're certainly getting up there. And we are certainly getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer to the end of the game, obviously.
Much better.
Like, that would be particularly ridiculous if we were not getting close to the end of the game. So the whole point of a game and a narrative is that you eventually get closer to the end of it. But there we go.
How pitiful, you soulless creatures.
You see, what's going on in my head at the minute is,
You finally catching on?
oh, I wish I was playing this game again, rather than trying to finish off Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories.
You don't look so
Because I love this battle system. I can't stand the battle system in Rechain of Memories. Like, there was part of me which was thinking, I quite want to cover other games in the Kingdom Hearts series because I do love that series. But then the other part of me was thinking, you know, that kind of means that I feel I'd have to cover Rechain of Memories next before I went to any of the others because it's
finally catching on.
important in terms of the plot. And I'm kind of very much just like, don't really want to play it again, because I really don't get on with it as a game. So we'll see what happens on that front. I'll just be happy as long as I can beat the damn thing and give myself enough time to play through Layton's mystery journey.
You
That is
soulless
what it's called, isn't it? Yes! Layton's mystery journey. Catriel and the Millionaire's Conspiracy. Before Super Mario Odyssey comes out, because really looking forward to that game. Actually really looking forward to Layton's mystery journey as well, because it's been a long time since I've played any Layton. And I love a bit of Layton. So yeah, so other JRPGs are preventing me from playing the games that I want to play because I started them. I feel I need to finish them because I need to do well at doing that. Because I've had Chain of Memory sitting on my backlog for a while, even not playing it for a bit because I was recording Sonata. Yeah, kind of need to finish it now. And it's not as fun as Eternal Sonata. Ooh, Mirage Blow. I'll certainly have to give that a try at some point. It's not my favourite attack, because it just decreases the attack of the opponent, but it can be quite cool to use. But either way, after what I believe was another glitchy bit and another fight, time to teleport to the next island. Yay!